Good afternoon. Welcome to News Plus here on Loveworld USA. I'm TGK Andre. Let's take a quick look at the top headline stories this afternoon. Trump and Putin discuss Middle East tensions and Ukraine conflict in 50-minute call. Minnesota lawmaker killed, another wounded in targeted political attack. TSA agent arrested for alleged assault of 79-year-old passenger at Florida airport. California faces scrutiny over spending on illegal immigration following federal riot response. And now to the news. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have reportedly held a 50-minute phone conversation Saturday, focusing on the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran and the ongoing war in Ukraine, according to Russian presidential aide Yuri Ushakov. Ushakov stated that the dangerous escalation of the situation in the Middle East was naturally at the center of the exchange of opinions. The Russian official said Putin briefed Trump on his recent meetings with leaders from both Israel and Iran. The two leaders reportedly discussed the Iranian nuclear issue, and neither side ruled out the possibility of re-engaging in negotiations aimed at a diplomatic resolution. Russia has continued to advocate for a return to mutually agreed terms regarding Iran's nuclear program. We saw the escalation of tensions on Thursday as Israel formally struck Iran, and in the last 2 days since that's happened, even as we speak now, there are reports of Israel and Iran exchanging ballistic missiles across the countries. So obviously, if you have two world leaders meeting at any point in time, even if you want to discuss anything else, that somewhat has to be near, if not at the forefront, near the forefront, let alone the two superpowers that are Russia and the United States. So of course, it's good to see the two world leaders getting together to have a good diplomatic conversation, hopefully also focused on, of course, ending the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, but also focused on the rising tensions between Iran and Israel. Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot and killed early Saturday in what authorities described as a politically motivated attack. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot at their home and underwent emergency surgery. Both couples were Democrats, and the shootings occurred in separate but nearby locations in Champlin and Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Law enforcement officials say the suspect, who was impersonating a police officer, opened fire on responding officers after being found out at Hortman's home. The individual, wearing tactical gear and driving a vehicle outfitted with police lights, fled the scene on foot. Officers discovered a list in the suspect's vehicle containing the names of Hortman, Hoffman, and other Democratic political figures, including Governor Tim Walz and Representative Ilhan Omar. Police believe the suspect may have been motivated by extreme views, possibly related to abortion policy. Federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies are now coordinating to provide security to those named on the list. A shelter-in-place order has been issued in Brooklyn Park as the manhunt continues. President Donald Trump and federal officials have condemned the violence, promising that those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Citizens have been urged not to open their doors to lone officers unless verified through emergency dispatch. The investigation is ongoing. Watch this.
My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers also go out to State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who were each shot multiple times.
We've received new information that the name of the alleged suspect is called Vance Bolter. Vance Bolter was apparently a hire by Tim Walz, an appointee to one of the governor's boards, Tim Walz, of course, being the governor of Minnesota. So it paints an interesting picture. And of course, there was footage revealed yesterday showing the assailed, victim voting, of course, she is a Democratic speaker, voting against a bill that would have allowed adult illegal immigrants to gain access to health care. Of course, voting against her party in a sense, saying that she believed she was doing what was best for her constituents. And then other reports have also now stated that there were no King's pamphlets or flyers found inside the car of the shooter. Of course, our hearts go out to the victims, of course, to the speaker's family and to the state senator's family. I heard that they've undergone emergency surgery and it's looking like a recovery is coming soon. But the issue with political violence is that it stems from speech, not hate speech, but radical speech. And this is what happens when you allow the news media to fill your heart with fear, to fill your heart with hatred, and to eventually lead you to violence. The issue with situations like this is that when you believe that you have such an enemy that is against you in every fiber of your being, it is natural for you to want to take a stand against them. I mean, if you believe that somebody wants you dead or wants the worst for you, it is natural for you to take a stance against them. But what we have to understand is that when you have people like Governor Tim Walz saying that the Democrats need to get meaner, when you have people promoting rhetoric, pushing riots and calling them peaceful protesters, and you have tensions heightening, sometimes those on the radical fringes can snap. And hopefully this is an isolated incident. Again, our prayers go out to the families involved. A Transportation Security Administration agent was allegedly arrested after assaulting a 79-year-old woman at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, according to authorities. The Broward Sheriff's Office confirmed that the incident occurred on July 9, 2024, during a security screening at Terminal 3. The agent, identified as 21-year-old Janiyah Wilson Robinson, is accused of pushing the elderly passenger with both hands, causing her to fall backwards and strike her head. Surveillance footage reviewed by airport police reportedly captured the incident. The victim declined to be transported to a hospital and was treated at the scene with an ice pack for minor injuries. Wilson Robinson was arrested and charged with aggravated battery on a person 65 years of age or older, a felony under Florida law. She was booked into Broward County Jail and released on $1,000 bond. TSA has since placed her on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. In a statement, TSA said it is fully cooperating with law enforcement and reaffirmed its commitment to treating all travelers with dignity and respect. The agency noted that the accused employee's actions do not reflect the conduct expected of TSA personnel. Let's take a look.
Janiyah Wilson Robinson has been slapped with this mugshot after an on-the-job incident at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. It's where the 21-year-old works as a TSA agent, and at some point on Wednesday, she encountered a 79-year-old airline passenger. An arrest report says Robinson committed aggravated battery against the victim by placing the palms of her hands on the victim and forcefully pushing her. Investigators say the actions were intentional and that the elderly victim fell to the ground, landing on the left side of her backside and striking her forehead on the ground, enough for minor visible bruising. Robinson was arrested and spent the night at the North Broward Detention Facility in Pompano Beach, where we caught up with the TSA worker Thursday night, just as a loved one picked her up from jail.
Did she fall or did you push her?
Robinson didn't answer any of our questions about the incident.
Anything you wanted to say to her or her family?
But her employer is reacting with a statement that says, in part, TSA holds its employees to the highest standards of professionalism and integrity, and we do not tolerate behavior that violates these standards or the public's trust.
What an incident. I mean, even if insults were thrown, even if tensions were escalated, even if there was aggression directed towards the TSA agent. I mean, when you look at an elderly who obviously isn't in the same physical shape as a 22-year-old, you have to exercise common sense and restraint. I mean, to push somebody with enough force that they fall back and hit their head at that age, that is an incident that could easily turn fatal. And we are very grateful and fortunate that it did not turn fatal and that they were able to be treated at the airport and not have to be rushed to the hospital. I mean, of course, we wish the best for both parties because this was clearly a mistake from Janiyah Robinson, hopefully, and she can come back better from it after considering and reflecting on her actions. The Bible says, that forgiveness or repentance involves not just apologizing, but also a commitment to turn back from your ways. And hopefully in Janiyah Robinson's quest for repentance or forgiveness in this situation, maybe there's an anger management class that they can go to or something. Of course, her employer, TSA, will probably want nothing to do with her after this situation, but hopefully she can learn from this and move on from this so it's not just an unfortunate incident for both parties. California Democrats are facing renewed scrutiny after social media users circulated budget data showing billions spent on services for illegal immigrants. The reaction follows criticism by Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass over the federal government's $134 million response to recent immigration-related unrest in Los Angeles. According to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, California taxpayers are estimated to have spent over $30 billion annually on illegal immigrants, including $2 billion yearly on incarceration alone. A 2022 FAIR report cited $22 billion in total costs, with the most recent analysis indicating a 40% increase. These organizations attribute these costs to healthcare, education, and social services provided to non-citizens. Critics also point to California's expansion of Medi-Cal to cover all income-eligible residents, regardless of immigration status. The state now provides free taxpayer-funded healthcare to 1.6 million undocumented immigrants. Wallet Hub ranks California 47th among states for taxpayer return on investment, intensifying concerns over fiscal management. The Department of Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary, Tricia McLaughlin, defended the federal funding decision, citing the need for public safety and border enforcement. The federal deployment of law enforcement resources followed protests at immigration and customs enforcement facilities, which saw significant property damage and multiple arrests. Watch this.
We're sharing intelligence, aligning resources, and responding quickly and effectively as conditions continue to evolve.
If you see somebody reaching into a backpack and pulling out a sledgehammer, pulling out a brick, pulling out pyrotechnics, pulling out a Molotov cocktail, these are the things our officers and deputies are being attacked with. You need to get away from that, or I would like somebody out there to let law enforcement know.
And there are 40 different events and demonstrations happening in LA County this weekend. 30 of those are associated with the No Kings movement. CHP says it's tracking over 209 protests in California, and it has 8 special response teams deployed, ready to go. Now, several other large-scale sporting events are taking place at SoFi Stadium and the Rose Bowl. So LAPD, CHP, and the Sheriff's Department says it's all working together and can ask for help from one another if need be. They are also in touch with the Office of Emergency Management. This is tied to the governor's office. As you mentioned, we're seeing Marines take over patrols from the National Guard outside of the federal building in Westwood. The chief of police says federal authorities will solely be staged outside of federal buildings. They are not going to be handling crowd control. And just within the hour, we heard from Mayor Karen Bass, who says the raids have caused fear and panic, and she calls LA a test case for federal authorities. She also addressed tomorrow's wide-scale protests.
The issue that's arising here is the fact that you have leadership that are prioritizing neighbors over their family. And when I say this, I need you to understand that the Bible does say to be kind to your neighbors. We can't take that away. But the same Bible also says that any man that cannot take care of his family is worse than an infidel. So when you put these side by side, you have to understand that the family of Governor Gavin Newsom is his constituents in California who aren't being taken care of properly compared to the illegal immigrants. I mean, when you're spending $30 billion a year on illegal immigrants, while you have homelessness in California, while you have people who are looking for jobs, while you have people who are trying to get by in the economy that they face, of course there's going to be criticism to be had. of course, is going to be unrest. And again, this now puts the immigrants at the target, at the center. And now you have these riots coming because you have people feeling the unrest, because you have people who have become acclimatized to this situation that shouldn't have been. So when you let lawlessness in and it becomes the order of the day, when order is now trying to come back in, there's going to be unrest because people have become acclimated to the situation that they're in, although it may not be the proper situation. So you have California losing money, you have the citizens not getting benefits, and now you also have illegal immigrants caught in the crossfire. And this is all because the Californian government has refused to take a stand on what should be so simple. I mean, if they could actually afford to take care of the illegal immigrants and their citizens, all of this unrest wouldn't be happening, but it's clear that they can't. Hopefully, common sense prevails in the Californian government. We will take a break, and when we return, we'll take a look at some of the stories that made the headlines this week. Don't go anywhere.
Money is the sign of shortage. Money is not the sign of blessing, it is the sign of shortage. Money is not the evidence of blessing, it is the evidence of shortage. It is the evidence of lack. I know nobody ever told you that. So you better listen to me now. I walk in absolute prosperity, so I can tell you, money is not a sign of prosperity, it's a sign of lack. It's a game that defines the classification of people. Once you are able to see beyond it and understand what God's plan is and who you are not controlled by money. Money becomes your slave. Somebody said, I wish I heard what Pastor just said in the month of May. Month of blessing, I would have applied it. You still have time. We carry all the blessings of the previous month into the new ones. That's what we do. Never let the thought of money control your attitude. Yes, sir. You know, there are people who become happy when they have money. And when they don't have it, you can tell. You just look at them, you can tell. You can tell they're broken down. Money's their master. They're worshiping the God of Mammon. When you are delivered from that, or when you've not been enslaved by that, you don't know when you've had money and when you've not had money because you don't operate with those numbers. La korabakasaya, rabakandalobosia. Are you still there?
Welcome back. President Donald Trump's expanded travel ban took effect Monday at midnight Eastern Time, barring citizens from 12 countries from entering the United States. The order targets Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Brazil, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Citizens from 7 additional nations, including Venezuela and Cuba, face partial restrictions. The White House defended the order as a common-sense measure to enhance national security. Trump said the list may change based on future threats or improvements in security cooperation from affected nations. While the ban includes several exemptions for green card holders, U.S. government employees, certain visa holders, and athletes attending major events, the move has drawn sharp criticism and may face legal challenges. Some countries, including Chad and Somalia, have already responded, with Chad suspending U.S. visa issuance in retaliation. The ban follows a June 1st terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, which Trump cited as justification. Though the suspect was Egyptian, Egypt was not included on the list. Let's take a look.
Entry to the U.S. will be barred from those 12 countries, and there's a partial ban affecting visas from travelers from 7 other nations. The White House says the countries lack proper vetting, that they do not share identity and threat information, and that they have a high visa overstay rate. Now, one of the nations that is on that list, Haiti, New York, obviously a large Haitian community, reacting strongly to the president's plans.
Again, this is a situation that has a simple solution. The countries need to step up their verification and security processes. I discussed this earlier. It's pretty simple. If you're a parent, or put yourself in the shoes of a parent and you have a child, and your child brings home a friend, and that child cannot tell you where that friend is from, odds are more likely than not you're not going to let that person into your house because there is no verification. Your child can't tell you where their friend went to school, who their parents are, a parent's phone number, or the information that they're giving is shaky, and that friend of your child has issues that can be seen. You're obviously not going to want them inside your home with your child and your family. That is the type of movement that the president is taking. However, if your child now brings a friend and they can tell you, this is the friend's parents' phone numbers, call them and speak to them. They live here, they're in my grade, they're in the other class with a different homeroom teacher, the situation changes. Because now you have information that you can verify or that has already been verified, and you can trust who's coming into your home to be with your family in your private space. It's the same situation. So instead of a country like Chad barring US visas, the simple thing to do is to improve your verification process, because the United States wants to keep its borders more secure because their borders have had issues for decades now. It's not a big fuss or a hullabaloo. It's more about just update your systems to match our standards or to come close to our standards, and all of this goes away. It's not permanent, it's temporary until a solution is found. Simple as that. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has dismissed all 17 members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the government panel responsible for vaccine recommendations. The decision, announced in the Wall Street Journal, was based on what Kennedy called persistent conflicts of interest and a lack of public trust. Secretary Kennedy argued that many ACIP members had close ties to pharmaceutical companies, undermining impartiality. While committee members are required to disclose potential conflicts and recuse themselves from relevant votes, Kennedy claims the system promotes industry-aligned decision-making. Medical professionals and health groups have criticized the move. The American Medical Association warned that the firings could worsen vaccine hesitancy and disrupt public health efforts, especially amid current measles outbreaks and declining vaccination rates. Critics also raised concerns that Kennedy may appoint vaccine skeptics, impacting insurance coverage for key immunizations. The ACIP was scheduled to meet in late June to vote on updated recommendations for COVID-19, flu, and other vaccines. Kennedy has not yet named replacements, and some experts allege he is bypassing standard procedures in selecting new members. Watch this.
This morning, a massive change by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. removing all members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee, which makes recommendations on the safety and efficacy of vaccines. Members getting a notice saying, "This email serves as formal notice of your immediate termination." Kennedy releasing a statement saying, "Today we are prioritizing the restoration of public trust above any specific pro or anti-vaccine agenda." Kennedy argues a clean sweep is needed to restore public trust, claiming the committee had conflicts of interest, adding the Biden administration appointed all 17 current members, with 13 of them last year. But critics have called this change dangerous and partisan.
This is a side effect or a closely related symptom to lobbying in United States politics. And when I say that, I need you to understand that what I'm discussing is the fact that you have some congressmen or senators who will be on special boards in Congress who, when they're done serving their term, if they don't get elected, we've seen a track record of them going to go serve on the board or advisory panel of a company that they had the responsibility of regulating as a member of Congress. So you would see people who would vote, let's say, to authorize a war, then go and join the board of Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, or people who would vote to allow the increase of a certain drug price, then go and serve on the board of the same pharmaceutical company that benefited after their term is over. This is the kind of situation and concern that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is taking into account. If you have people who are on the vaccine recommendation board who may have interest in joining these companies after, who may have these companies in their pockets, either with a future promise or a previous promise as long as they got elected, it's difficult to actually get what's necessary and what is actually proper for the American populace when instead it's their pockets that are actually being populated. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had to take the move to clear the board again, 13 of which were appointed last year by President Biden. So it's not like they'd been there and they'd had a storied career in the department. Only 4 of them had a longer tenure than a year. And to actually replace with people who are unbiased and serve the public good and not their private interests. Good on RFK Jr. Federal prosecutors have rejected a motion to dismiss charges against Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan, who was accused of helping an illegal immigrant evade federal authorities in a courthouse incident captured on surveillance video. Dugan is facing federal charges of obstruction and unlawful concealment after allegedly escorting domestic battery suspect Eduardo Flores Ruiz out of the building during an ICE enforcement operation. Dugan's legal team argues she is protected by judicial immunity and that the charges violate the Constitution's separation of powers. However, prosecutors responded that judges are not immune from criminal prosecution and accused Dugan of acting outside her judicial duties. According to court filings, Dugan confronted ICE agents, directed them elsewhere, and personally guided the suspect and his attorney to a private exit while knowing agents were present to serve an arrest warrant. The Department of Justice states Dugan took these actions despite recently acknowledging ICE's authority to make arrests in courthouse hallways. Surveillance footage appears to support the prosecution's timeline, showing Dugan leaving her bench, interrupting another courtroom session, and facilitating the suspect's departure through a non-public area. Dugan has pleaded not guilty and faces up to 6 years in prison if convicted. Her trial, scheduled for July 21st. The case has drawn national attention over concerns about local interference in federal immigration enforcement and whether elected officials are held to the same legal standards as other citizens. And again, I have to say, the people that are actually suffering from this are illegal immigrants that are trying to do right in this country. When you keep on caping and sticking up for those that have actually committed crimes, because again, he was in court for domestic battery, meaning that he physically assaulted somebody else inside his own family. Probably, his wife or his partner. It's not like he was a saint. And this has always been my qualm in this situation. If you come into a country illegally, especially a country like the United States of America, you know that there are benefits that this country can give you that no other country can. So if you've snuck in, it's best to lead a low profile and do your best to live amongst the laws of the country. But when you break that, you leave yourself susceptible to deportation that you're always susceptible to. So why a judge trying this case would want to keep a criminal inside the country? Again, it's not like she was trying to save a mother of 3 who's just trying to take care of her children and, was working illegally. It's a criminal who was arrested for domestic battery. This is the same situation with Kilmar Abrego, who had smuggling and battery charges against his name that the Democrats tried to make the face to face Trump's immigration push. When you put people like this as the face of your situations, you paint to those who don't understand the situation, you're showing them that, hey, these are the people we're trying to defend. We're trying to defend criminals while calling them the face of the immigration movement. And it's the actual illegal immigrants who are trying to do good in this country that get hurt the most. So I hope that the prosecution puts their case together, because Judge Dugan does deserve to face charges for something like this. Because defending a criminal and allowing him to be turned into the face of the anti-immigration movement or the immigration movement helps absolutely nobody. Nobody at all. We'll be right back with more news. Be sure to stay tuned.
The life of a soldier is not just a job, it's a calling and a sacred tradition passed down from father to son, brother to sister, and one generation to the next. At every hour of danger, our noblest citizens have answered that call. Time and again, our enemies have learned that if you dare to threaten the American people, American soldier will chase you down, crush you, and cast you into oblivion. The last sound you ever hear will be the dueling howl of Black Hawks. thunderous boom of artillery fire, or the ferocious roar of a U.S. Army infantry brigade. For our adversaries, there's no greater fear than the United States Army. Now it's your duty to shield the flame of freedom that was first lit 250 years ago by the heroes of Concord Bridge and Bunker Hill. Standing before you today, I am more confident than ever that in the days ahead and every generation to come, the U.S. Army will heap glory upon glory. You will protect every inch of U.S. soil, and you will defend America to the ends of the earth.
Welcome back. President Donald Trump says he is open to reconciling with Elon Musk following their recent dispute over Trump's proposed federal spending package. In an interview on the debut episode of Pod Force One with Miranda Devine, Trump expressed disappointment but said he holds no hard feelings towards the Tesla and SpaceX CEO. The falling out came after Musk publicly criticized the legislation as excessive and wasteful. Musk, who had chaired the Department of Government Efficiency under Trump's administration with a mandate to cut $2 trillion in federal spending, resigned from his role on May 28th. Days later, Musk denounced Trump's Big Beautiful Bill on social media, calling it a disgusting abomination and accusing lawmakers of irresponsible fiscal practices. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the bill could add trillions to the national debt. Trump's bill extends key provisions of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act while allocating new funding for border security and defense. It passed the House in May and awaits Senate action. Trump said his focus remains on economic recovery and national stability, but he indicated he's open to future collaboration with Musk, stating, "We have to straighten out the country first." Musk has recently softened his rhetoric, acknowledging in a new X post that his previous remarks went too far. Trump responded by calling the gesture very nice and reiterated that the proposed legislation will rapidly improve the nation's economic standing. The exchange underscores ongoing tensions between fiscal conservatives and innovation leaders as the administration seeks to drive growth while managing national debt. Let's take a look.
Well, I have no hard feelings. I was really surprised that happened. He went after a bill that's phenomenal. It's the best thing we've ever signed in this country. And that's phase one. Phase two, phase three, all of a sudden is, it all comes together. It's coming together so well. And when he did that, I was not a happy camper. So it's too bad.
You said he had problems. What kind of problems? I mean, is it the drugs?
I don't know what his problem is, really. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about him in the last little while. But the bill is so good. When he went after the bill, this bill is going to turn around this country so fast your head will spin. It's good for everyone. It's also a tax cut. It's a massive tax cut. It's an extension of debt, which we need. We have to get that. And then we're going to start paying off debt at record levels. It's tariffs on certain people. It's, by the way, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security.
All your promises.
Yeah. And I mean, it's no tax on overtime. If a worker works overtime, there's no tax. That's going to be a great stimulant for the country. No, I think a bill is great. And
he just didn't
I think
get that.
He feels very badly that he said that, actually.
And maybe it was something else. I mean, he had the fight with Scott Besson outside your office.
Yeah, well, they had not a fist fight, people, but I guess they had a little bit of a shouting match. But that's
Did you hear it?
That's typical. I heard a little bit. That's sort of typical about,
Yeah.
that happens.
You were very kind to him. I saw you together, and I think he treated you a bit like a father. And
I was disappointed
yeah,
in him, but it is what it is. That happens. Things like that happen. I don't blame him for anything. That I was a little disappointed.
Could you reconcile?
Say it?
Could you reconcile with him, do you think? Could you forgive him?
I guess I could, but, we have to straighten out the country.
Yeah.
And my sole function now is getting this country back to a level higher than it's ever been. And I think we can do that. I think we're going to do it easily.
The Bible says that a kind answer turneth away wrath. And as we've seen Elon Musk take a step back from his previous posts on X, deleting them, and also formally stating that he'd gone too far, we're seeing the kind answer come out. While there is understandable criticism and negative energy towards the big beautiful bill that Trump proposed, the way that Elon Musk went about it on X was no way to act. And the following back and forth that ensued between the president and Elon Musk, of course, was no way for two leaders, and of course one in the innovative space and one in the political, if not global, geopolitical space, to act in public on social media for the rest of the world to be able to have a view of. But it is good to see Trump, who has been surprisingly forgiving in this term, of course, first forgiving the signal leak that happened with one of his staffers, and now this Elon Musk situation. It's good to see that his heart is in a good place. And of course, as he said at the end of the video that you just watched, his mind is just on getting the country better first, showing that his commitment still first and foremost, despite all the drama, is to ensuring the future prosperity of the nation. President Donald Trump announced Tuesday that a trade agreement between the United States and China is effectively complete, pending final approval from both himself and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The statement followed 2 days of high-level negotiations in London focused on critical minerals and education exchanges. Under the proposed deal, China will resume full exports of rare earth metals and magnets vital for U.S. industries, while the U.S. will allow Chinese students to attend American universities. Those agreements come after months of escalating tariffs and mutual accusations of non-compliance with earlier pacts. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick confirmed the framework agreement, stating that once both heads of state approve it, implementation will proceed. China's Vice Commerce Minister Li Qianjiang echoed this, citing progress based on a June 5th call between Trump and Xi and the Geneva Consensus. The deal marks a de-escalation in the ongoing trade dispute that earlier saw U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods rise to 145%, with reciprocal actions from Beijing. A temporary truce in May had reduced these rates and set a 90-day window for further negotiation, which culminated in this week's agreement. Watch this.
Both sides have agreed to a deal rolling back many of the punitive sanctions the countries put on each other in an escalating trade war over the past few months. President Trump posting on Truth Social this morning, "Our deal with China is done, subject to final approval with President Xi and me. We will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities." He also said, "We are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent." The deal comes after 2 days of negotiations in London, China and the U.S. essentially agreeing to return to the framework of a deal reached in Switzerland in May. That deal fell apart when China restricted shipments of magnets and rare earth minerals needed by U.S. manufacturers. The president said that issue has been resolved and the shipments will restart. President Trump and President Xi spoke by phone last week for 90 minutes, their first conversations since Mr. Trump returned to office in January. It's unclear whether this agreement will lead to a broader trade agreement between the two countries.
Progress is always beautiful, and it's good to see President Xi and President Trump and, of course, the delegates coming together to strike an agreement. We reported on the first tentative agreement. That was more of a framework to allow negotiations to continue with a 3-month timeline. And now, as President Trump has stated, it looks like that agreement has finally come together. And with China, the bellwether, the first and foremost staunch opponent of the Liberation Day tariffs coming on board in negotiation, you have to assume that the rest of the global economies will also follow suit in a short period. Which just means that, again, President Trump is speaking softly and carrying the big stick, and when it's time to wield the stick, he's wielding it with wisdom. This spells beautiful things for the American economy, and hopefully when the big beautiful bill also gets sorted, we should be aiming to see a level of American flourishing that hasn't been seen in decades, as is the promise that the president had for the country. But of course, here at Loveworld USA, we will keep you updated as it happens. And now, let's take a look at the weather update. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. Trump and Putin discuss Middle East tensions and Ukraine conflict in 50-minute call. Minnesota lawmaker killed, another wounded in targeted political attack. TSA agent arrested for alleged assault of 79-year-old passenger at Florida airport. California faces scrutiny over spending on illegal immigration following federal riot response. And that's News Plus for today. Remember to join us same time tomorrow for more. I'm TGK Andre. Good afternoon. God bless you.